F, please. Ok. So, buonasera a tutti, benvenuti a questa terza videoconferenza dell'anno 2022. Questa sera parleremo di trame e filobus in Ucraina. L'oratore sarà Lars Richter, il nostro vecchio amico da Amburgo. Come sapete, in questo momento l'Ucraina è nell'occhio del ciclone, quindi a causa del possibile conflitto con la Russia, ma che tutti noi speriamo francamente venga evitato. Ma stasera non vogliamo parlare di guerra, vogliamo parlare di pace e di fratellanza fra tutti gli amici del tram del mondo. La presentazione sarà fatta in inglese, alla fine della serata, come al solito, ci sarà spazio per eventuali domande in inglese o in italiano. Potete anche usare la chat in ogni momento durante la presentazione. Vi ricordo che il programma completo delle prossime presentazioni è disponibile come sempre sul nostro sito internet nella home page. Grazie. Now in English, good evening and welcome to all of you. This is the third appointment in 2022 within the cycle of our international video conferences on the Zoom platform, all dedicated to tramways and other means of transport. Tonight's presentation is dedicated to tramways and trolley buses of Ukraine. It will be held by an old friend of ours, Lars Richter from Hamburg, Germany. As you all know, in this very moment, Ukraine is in spotlight due to a possible conflict with Russia that we all hope will be avoided. But tonight we don't want to speak of war, we want to speak of peace and brotherhood between all tram enthusiasts in the world. The presentation will be done in English. At the end of the evening, there will be a space for any questions in English or in Italian, and you can also use the chat in every moment during the presentation. I remind you that a complete program of the forthcoming presentation is available, as always, on our internet site on the English section. Thank you. The floor now goes to Lars Richter. Please, Lars, go on.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Buonasera. Yes, Roberto told us Ukraine is in the news, but we talked about my subject here about a year ago, so we didn't know that it would be quite the topic at the moment. Coincidence. Let's see what's going to happen. Let's hope for the best. I want to take you on a little tour. As you can see from the title here, I have traveled the Ukraine for a number of years. I wish I had started earlier, but I discovered it quite late. Still, I find it extremely interesting and fascinating. I got many friends there. I've been everywhere where you can go, and I want to show you where I went. The photos I'm going to show you will be have been taken between 2016 and 2021. So I've been there in October last year. And I've put some of these photos in there, but some are a little older, from 2016 and in between. Ukraine is changing a lot. A lot of money is coming in from the European Union, from the World Bank and other organizations that help this still rather poor country. We've traveled, I usually travel with some friends. We travel by car. I got a friend in Kiev, and he usually drives us around. We have also rented a car, a little van at one stage. I've done a big tour with about 45 people by coach. So we have used railways as well, and regular buses, and also taxis, which was a first for me in October. I will tell a little about that later. But we have experienced the state of the road network in Ukraine, which in 2016 was in many parts still very bad. But when we did the same thing in 2021, we only encountered one or two quite bad roads. So a lot of money is going into the country. And this also reflects our subject today, which is trams and trolleybuses. I like both. Ukraine has more trolleybus systems than tram systems. We'll look at both. We'll probably maybe look at the trams a little longer, but I want to show you all the trolleybus systems as well. What are we going to see? Let me move forward here. It's a bit slow. There we go. This is a map I found on the internet. This is Ukraine. We will do a tour. We will start in Kiev here in the middle, and then we'll head east. Not quite as far as one could go some years ago, before 2014. We'll then go down south and do the west and end the tour in Kiev. What I cannot show you are certain parts of Ukraine, and the reason is it's impossible to go there. It was possible to go there before 2014, but Crimea has been annexed by Russia, and the Lugansk and Donetsk
Lars, excuse me, you seem to have muted.
I don't know why that happened. I saw that a little message came up. Yes, I think you can hear me again. Not sure why, sorry. And the computer is a bit slow. We will start in Kiev, which is the capital, of course. We have a look at the tram, the fast tram, the trolleybus, and only one or two images here showing you the metro and the funicular we find in the city. I found this old map on the internet. It's a number of years old because one of the tram lines here is no longer there. But as you can see, the red lines are the trams and the blue lines are the trolleybuses. So the trolleybus network is much larger than the tram network. The tram network is really just a very, it's just a small leftover from it used to be. But it's still, nevertheless, it's still interesting. And there are two tram networks. There's the tram network on the left bank, and there is the tram network on the right bank. And they are not connected. So they have the depots, they have the workshops, and no movement between the two systems is done at all. Kiev is, or what we see here is one of the old Tatra trams. Kiev has quite a lot of these. Many of them have been replaced by secondhand trams from Czech Republic and from Slovakia, but there is still quite a number of the original ones, and unfortunately most of them are in a very bad state. They don't seem to put any money into them. There's a lot of rust. And this one looks quite okay. It's taken at the railway workshops in Darnica on the left bank, and this line has just been completely rebuilt. We see it before the rebuilding took place, but it's now back in service, looking much nicer. Kiev has a very varied network. There is a lot of street running. There is a lot of reservations. There is the fast tram. We will look at that. This is taken downtown close to Kontraktova Square, and originally many more lines operated here, and you can see a little bit of track in the corner down here. Much of the abandoned track has been lifted, but in this area some remains. And we see another, yes, we see another original tram. Usually you can tell by looking at the little holders here, which are for flags. If they celebrate something, they put a little Ukrainian flag there. As far as I remember, the second-hand trams from the Czech Republic don't have that. The street running in Kiev is, as you see here, very often done in a one-way system. So you have trams going single track along a one-way system. As you can see, there's no entry here this side. Trams going the other way use another road. Eventually they will join again. This also is responsible for the abandonment of a lot of the lines in downtown Kiev when they made these streets one way. The trams were in the way, and a lot of them were replaced by trolley buses, and then the trolley bus also goes one way and uses the other street that goes the other way to return. I like Kiev because it has a very mixed variety of track work here. We are in a suburb here which goes towards the Boryspil airport, and there's a metro in the distance. It's another original Tatra car built for the Soviet Union, but it has been, the front has and the back has been replaced with a replica plastic front, which you can see here. It has some different styling to the original. Shrink wrap, as my American friends call it, or all over advertising, is fairly rare. There have been years in the past where we saw much more. At the moment, you don't see many trams, and if you do, it's usually the old ones. Sometimes I have the feeling that the advertising is keeping the bodywork in place because of the bad state of the rolling stock. Here we see one of the secondhand trams, which probably came from maybe Prague. There are lists in on the internet where you can look all this up. The thing is, they just use the number of a retired Soviet built or for the Soviet Union built Tatra and give it to a secondhand tram. Something to do with it's not allowed to import secondhand trams to run them in Kiev. It seems to be possible in other cities, but not in Kiev. But they found a way to go around this by just scrapping the old tram and putting the old number on a completely new tram. Of course, the bogies, the trucks have either been widened, or I think they probably just use the old ones that have been refurbished. We are here in a northern suburb of Kiev, and it used to be my favorite location because of the little market there, which is at the tram stop. There was a loop on the right, and it's always been very busy, quite colorful. There's a big market on the left, a little further away, quite huge Soviet style with many stalls, live animals, and stuff like that. But unfortunately, the money has arrived, and they have now beautified this location, and it's quite dull. In the distance, we see the Elektrichka, which is an electric S-Bahn type service they run in Kiev, which is actually run by a Kiev Pass Trans, which is it's the tram, trolleybus, bus, and funicular operator. They also operate the Elektrichkas, but not the metro, which is separate. There are many depots in Kiev. This is on the left bank, and I probably took this photo through the fence of Darnica depot, and it's usually very full of trams in various states. Not quite sure what they're doing here, if this tram was supposed to be rebuilt or modernized, or maybe the wrapping is there to make sure it doesn't fall apart. On the left, we see a secondhand tram, and the others seem to be original ones. There are more modern Tatra trams in Kiev. Here we have a T3M with a square body. This one looks quite nice. Most of the other ones I've seen over the years look extremely terrible, with very rusty and dented bodywork, but this one they've done up. The latest modernization that was done is nearly all the trams now have digital displays. So the old ones have metal route numbers mostly. There's usually no destination sign on the old ones. Sometimes they have one in the side window, but the new ones are digital, and they only give you the route number. So you have to really know if you're a tourist and you hop on a tram, you have to really make sure where it goes. It could go one way, or it could go the other way if you're not familiar with your surroundings. One of these original T3Ms has been converted into a kind of a cafe tram, which runs regularly. There is a very long, almost interurban line that goes into the woods in the north. Quite a long ride, probably, I guess, 45 minutes. And in the summer, it's quite beautiful. And they serve coffee and tea. And one can also rent this tram. I've had some private hires or charters on this one. There are very few modern trams in Kiev. And it used to be that on the left bank, there used to be only two, really, at least if we talk about articulated cars. Here we see one which has the logo on the front from Belkomunmash, from Belarus, but it's been assembled locally. I think Bogdan assembled this tram, and this is the only one they have. And when I was in Kiev, or when I go to Kiev, I often go to the left bank network because I find it more interesting. And usually I have to chase these trams. It's difficult. They only run in the morning rush and in the afternoon rush or evening rush, and during the day you don't see them. But I managed, and I think I rode it all the way up here because the sun was good at this location. There is one pseudo-historic tram which originally came from Lviv, and it's been rebuilt to probably resemble a historic tram that might have, or an old tram that might have run in Kiev a long time ago. Unfortunately, it's no longer in service. And when we visited the depot, they would not even allow us a little ride on it in the depot. Here, this is Podilske depot. In previous years, they ran it, and they also ran it on the line into the woods where we saw the cafe tram. But unfortunately, it seems to be in a bad state technically, and they don't want passengers on it. This is the only tram I found in Kiev that is not in service anymore, but is visible to the public. Romania has a lot of these trams at McDonald's for the kids, and this is the only one I found there, probably been there for a number of years, and it has a modernized front, but there was probably something else wrong with it, so they put it there. This is a photo I took in October last year. And when we arrived on the left bank network in the morning, we just missed this tram. And then we tried to chase it, and it had disappeared. It took me a while to figure out that it was sitting here at this loop on the fast tram, lines 4 and 5, for about four hours, I think, because I was waiting for it further down south, and it never came back. But I traced it down eventually, and this loop was full of trams. I think this has something to do with the track replacement reaching or serving Danica depot, which meant that a lot of the trams left the depot. There was a single track available, and then they had to remain on the network the rest of the day. And as these cars are only used in the rush hour, it sat here for 4 hours doing nothing. There is a fast tram on the right bank as well. This is the depot view here. They have a number of these. These are electrons built in Lviv. I think more have arrived now. And they, of course, replace older equipment, and they also replace the articulated Tatras we see on the right. They are not scrapped. They are being moved over to the left bank system. And they have a low floor center section, so there is a little bit of low floor on both sides, but not a lot. This is another Tatra type. It's a K1 articulated tram built locally by Tatra Yuk, and it uses Tatra components, but with a slightly more modern body. There are a number of these as bogie trams in various cities, but Kiev has a number of these, 4 or 5, I think, which are articulated and run exclusively on the right bank fast tram lines. This is also the fast tram line. It's one of the original trams. You can see when they run in pairs, the second car usually it doesn't have all the equipment. There's no lamps, there's no control gear inside, so they can only run as second cars. And this part of the fast tramway on the right bank is in the process of being upgraded to light rail standard, which looks like this. This is just down from the view we had a minute ago of the articulated tram, which is in the distance, the station there. They are building low floor platforms. All the stops are being rebuilt. And I think this is the same picture taken a year later. Completely changed, not quite as good for photos because they put the fence in the middle there, the metal obstruction, but they want to make this part of the fast tram fast as well. Here we see another low floor tram. There's a couple of these around in Ukraine, also using Tatra compatible parts, but with a new body, low floor, quite small. This is from the fast tram on the right bank in Kiev, and it's actually St. Petersburg built, and it's the only one they have. And for a long time, I thought I only ever saw it in the depot. It doesn't move at all, but I think I was lucky here. One year I visited, I took a photo of it and then forgot all about it. And when I prepared this talk, I was glad that I caught it at least once in service. I've tried to rent it when we were there with a large group, and they said, no, I think it has problems. And being the only one, and the problems after the 2014 invasion there of eastern Ukraine, the trade with Russia is come to a stop, and they don't get parts. So it will probably, I don't know, it might not run again ever. Here is a bogie version of this K1 type built by Tatra Yuk. This is the southern terminus of the fast tram line on the left bank network. Behind the operator, who is having a smoke there and didn't mind me at all walking over the track here, because it was fairly quiet, not many people and not many trams running. Behind him you see the Elektrichka station, the S-Bahn suburban electric station, and the purpose of this loop here is to connect this railway with the tram network. It doesn't run all day. It's only in operation really in the morning peak and the evening peak. But or probably originally because the Elektrichka, the railway, didn't run all day, but now does. So maybe they have changed it and there is a more frequent service here. This is the latest tram. They now have 3. It's built by, we can probably jump one ahead here. As you can see, it's built by Tatra Yuk. Tatra Yuk is it's a K1, a modern low floor version of it. Tatra Yuk is a company, I think it's part of it, it's from Odessa, but the factory is actually the rocket factory in Dnipro. And we will come back to that later, because that company is known by different names, and different companies seem to operate out of the same factory. So they have a couple of big halls there where they build stuff, but not all the vehicles built there are built by the same company, but they all use the same facility. The facility itself is Yutzmash, which you can see here. This is the name of the rocket factory. We'll see photos of it when we go to Dnipro. Yeah, this one I caught. It's running on the fast tram on the left bank network, but without passengers, because also like the other one we saw earlier, it has been sitting there for 4 hours not doing anything. But as there are no loops and there's no spare track, allowing for a quick return to its line 28, it has to go all the way along the fast tram from the one terminus to the other empty, and then loop round and then all the way back, and then it can rejoin its route and do 1 or 2 runs or 3 runs in the evening before it heads back to the depot. So we talked to this man, to the driver, and he sounded his bell a lot, and he was quite happy to see us. It's a kind of a reservation here, but it's easy to go there, and you can see there are people walking here all the time, so they don't seem to mind as long as you don't walk onto the tracks. Work cars or non-passenger cars are a favorite of mine, and they have a few in Kiev, and sometimes one is lucky and you see them running around doing whatever. Sometimes they're pulling bogies and go from depot to depot, and sometimes they just drive around, but it must have a purpose. There are other systems in Ukraine where you see many more work cars out and about. In Kiev, you can probably see 1 a day on each side of the system, maybe 2 if you're lucky. Some of them are quite old. This, of course, has been heavily rebuilt. I think it's an MTV 82 tram used for whatever purpose. It's difficult to say if it's really leaving the depot sometimes. They have scrapped a lot recently. They have scrapped a lot of the snow plows. Not all that much snow falling there. Some are quite old, but here we can see they are in use, and here they have and there's probably about 10 or 12 of them still on the property at various depots. This is a tram I had heard of. There is a tiny little depot on the fast tram on the right bank. It's not the main depot, and it has not been in use for a long time, and one cannot really enter it because the tramway company has leased it out to other companies. I think it's used for storing taxis or stuff. So the depot itself, you can't walk in there. But then I found out there is a little cemetery right next to it. So I walked into the cemetery and I managed this view over the fence. And this one is just sitting here. I don't know if it will survive. I don't think it's in service anymore. This one seems to run every day, at least every weekday. And it's approaching the railway station. I was actually coming back from the railway station, and it seems to go from one depot to the other. And I've never seen anything on the flat section here, so I don't know what they do, but they seem to run every day and go once or twice from depot to depot. Always nice. It's heavily rebuilt. It's probably one of the old Kiev types. And there's also a nice little depot on the right bank, which has only 1 tram in it, and this is it. And it always sits there. It's too big to go in the shed, I think, so it's always sitting here. And if you walk past it, usually you can't take any photos because the big metal gate is closed and is covering everything. But on this occasion, it was wide open. We took a few pictures before somebody ran out and shouted at us. So we just walked away. So we haven't visited this officially. I visited all the other depots officially, but not this one. And I don't think I have to. It's only this tram and some tractors and stuff there. They do have some interesting works cars. And here we see a little 4-wheeler at Darnica depot. They have, I think, 2 left of them. There used to be some more locally built. Kiev used to build its own trams, and they used to build trolley buses. Well, that factory is long gone. And here we have a beauty. It's one of the old Kiev types, and a lot of it is still in original condition. They have, of course, changed certain things here. It's a works car. They have a couple of these, and they seem to use them mostly to push or pull trams that don't run anymore. There is a little museum in Kiev, a little transport museum. It's not a transport museum like you know in many other countries of this world. It's really just an exhibition. It's in the old Darnica depot, and they have various things here. They have the displays like this. They have a display of the funicular, and there used to be quite a nice exhibition of interesting rolling stock, like these water cars here on the right, and the only locomotive they ever had. I think they only had the one, at least this big one. And this is still here, but the display has been given up, and they have opened another little museum where they moved most of the exhibitions that used to be here. This is either still or used to be the lady boss of the company museum at Darnica depot. And this is the rest of old Darnica depot. It's more or less a scrapyard, so they don't want people to walk there, but we had the official tour and we managed. There used to be this nice little tram on display outside Podilske depot. It was then brought to this new museum, which is an old bus garage. Unfortunately, as you can see, the body was in such a bad state that they wanted to rebuild it, so they more or less started to taking it apart, and most of it just fell apart. And unfortunately now, well, only the truck survives and a little bit of the wooden body. Who knows, maybe one day they find some money and then they can rebuild it and make it look nice again. So we've looked at the trams of Kiev, and now we have a quick look at the trolleybuses. The trolleybus system is quite large, as we saw from looking at the map. And the rolling stock of the fleet, the vehicles are fairly modern. There is really very little old material left. This is really downtown with the churches and monasteries in the background. I'm not sure if they had trams here, probably, but downtown where the tourists go is mostly trolleybus now and not tram. And they have them in articulated versions and non-articulated versions. I like these Soviet type office buildings. They have a little canteen in them sometimes, and the dispatcher sits in there, and the staff can rest and have a tea or something else. Very few of this old type survive in this attractive green or another darker green livery. And this is one I rented once with a couple of friends, very small group, fairly inexpensive on a weekend. And we had a very enthusiastic crew, a driver and a conductor who was just accompanying us. And here we parked it. The street itself is one way. You see two wires up there, but I think they only go one way. And just to show how long the trolley poles are, they managed to post this tram, this trolleybus all the way on the other side of the street to make it a little more interesting. I think there are 1 or 2 or 3 maybe left in service, mostly not used for passenger traffic anymore, of this UMZ type. And I ran across it, I jumped on it and took it to the terminus, which is here. This is on the right bank, very close to the river. And they have a lot of high-rise buildings there. A lot of Kiev is not very beautiful. I mean, downtown is, but then all the suburbs are high-rise buildings, and some of them are quite fancy in this new style. Here we have a Skoda 14TR, which serves as a multi-purpose non-revenue vehicle. I think it's Depot 1, probably replaced by something else now. I think they had 2 there. And this is my favorite. It's a Skoda 90R at Depot, is this the number 4, which has not a number, they have a name for it. All the other depots have numbers, and I think this one doesn't. And as you can see, they use it to move trolley buses around the yard. I don't think it goes out anymore, but it's very nice. And I managed to liberate a few signs from inside that I didn't need anymore. I think there's a bird sitting on top there. This is the new museum, the old bus garage, and they have one of these Kiev built freight trolleys, KTG. I think they have two. This is the one that looks the best. There are a lot of buses in there and a lot of historic cars as well. So the real purpose of the museum is not quite clear to me. It's a kind of a transport museum. This is in the yard. There's two more 90Rs looking quite terrible, only the bodies. So we have a very quick look at the metro. We will only look at the metro in Kiev. I have not taken photos in Kharkiv or Dnipro. Photography there is not allowed, and it's difficult. In Kiev, it's more easy. I think officially it's not allowed, but here near Lisova, it is very easy to take photos either here from the side, or as a little footbridge. And sometimes the operators, they sound their horn and they wave at you. I don't know if they like it, or maybe they tell you not to take photos. I don't know. I've never had any problems in Kiev. We see the picture before, the photo before. They use this standard Russian rolling stock, and it comes in various guises. This is a more modern version with a more modern front. Both these, the previous one and this one, were taken at the Dnipro station right by the river, and this one has been modernized even more. This received a new front. This one was delivered with this more modern front. So on the other type of transit or transport is the funicular, which goes up the hill from Poshtova Square. It's been there a long time. And it's not very exciting, but it's different. There's two cars, and they go up and down, and they're fairly busy. From Kiev, we are heading east.
Non sento niente.
As I showed you, we are heading east. Chernihiv is a little further north. It's quite close to Chernobyl, I mean, relatively close, and the Russian border, the Belarusian border, the white Russian border, and they only have trolley buses. It's a fairly small network. The blue lines here are a trolley bus. All the maps I'm showing in my presentation have been taken from phototrans.org. They're doing some lines probably with battery. We see that in other cities as well, where they run battery trolley buses, but here it actually says autobus, so this might be an older map, but some of the systems have extensions where they use the new rolling stock, the new trolley buses. It's a quite interesting system. The vehicles have always been, I mean, I went there first in 2016. They never looked very well kept. And as you can see here, the scenery is quite nice. They have nice old buildings. Something you always see in Ukrainian cities is a tank. It's either a tank or a fighter plane, which is plinth and reminding people of the Second World War. And if I can, I'll always try to get either a picture with a tram and a tank or a trolley bus. And unfortunately, the shadow is in the way. You can't always. You're not always there at the right time, but at least I try. And you can see even this trolley bus looks rather terrible. In the depot, they looked even worse. And I don't think this one was still running. They have a very nice railway station, which has a lot of buses, mostly these Marshroute cars, these little mini buses. And every now and then a trolley bus comes. I think 3 or 4 lines go there, but you see more of these yellow Marshroute cars than you see of trolley buses. And when we went to the depot in 2016, they were doing something to this trolley bus. I think they were scrapping it because we saw many others. And They take everything apart. I managed to get one of these little ZU plates for my collection. When we went to this city in 2016, it was the only trolleybus system left in Ukraine which had a canteen trolleybus. Here it says comfort, comfort to the drivers. And it was parked at the northeastern terminus, and it was sitting there, and it had its own wire. So the running wire is here, and it had a lady driver serving tea and soup and coffee. And we took lots of photos of it, and she spotted us, and she asked us inside. So I'm not sure if everybody can go in there in 2016. Even the drivers, even the Marshwoodker drivers had a tea there or a soup. So did we. We paid her some money. And unfortunately, the next year, I think the car was retired, and no more canteen trolleybuses in Ukraine. They used to have them in many systems, many cities. Here we managed to get a photo of the training vehicle. We were driving around the town, and this one crept up on us, and on the way back it actually stopped and talked to our friend from Kiev, and they said, "Oh man, there's 4 people taking photos here. Usually it's only 1." But he explained what we were doing there. And they told us that the company is going to retire all the old decrepit trolleybuses and replace them with modern ones. So they are not bothering keeping them nice. This is what it's coming. I think this is an Italon. There's a couple of modern manufacturers here. It's a little loop fairly far out to the west of the system, and not very frequent. But many people at the bus stop. Here's another trolleybus in the depot. It's a BKM from Belarus, but I think it's been put together in Ukraine by the Italon company, which I think makes Marshwoodkers minibuses. So it has the BKM logo on the front, and also the Italon one. A lot of them just have BKM on them. I'm not going to show you a photo of a KTG trolleybus in every city, though I try to get them when I'm there. And sometimes they do drive around. Not always quite, you can not always quite see what they are doing. Sometimes they're pulling stricken trolleybuses back to the depot, but sometimes they just drive around doing something. It's quite nice. We're heading a little further east, a little further south again into Sumy Oblast, and we have Konotop, and we're back to trams. Konotop has a very small tram network. Line 3 runs like this and can only use KTM5s. The track work is rather bad, and whereas they still have some KTM5s like this one, they also have a lot of secondhand Tatra cars, and they run on the other lines, but not on line 3. Konotop is, to many people, it's like a very Russian city. It's close to the Russian border, and when you look at the street, which is unmade, and when you're there in winter or spring, when it's all muddy and wet, it's probably extremely difficult to drive there. If you live here, everybody has a car. So it's a tram street with rather bad track, as you can see. But they seem to manage. The KTM5s are rather sturdy. They have a K1, the single one. It originally was delivered to Kiev, but made its way here very quickly. I think it never received a fleet number in Kiev. I've seen photos of a tour there in the 90s in Kiev. This is line 3, and the terminus, the outer terminus, rather bleak. I'm not always going there in high season, like in summer. I sometimes go there in the spring or in the autumn, in the fall, and then there's no green. It's dull, it's cold, it's wet. But at least some of the trams they paint quite nicely. This is near our hotel, which is on the left here. And they've painted it in the nice Ukrainian colors. But not all of them. Some I think every tram has a different color, more or less. This is near the railway station. It's heading to the railway workshops. Water tower there in the distance. And this is what they mainly use now, secondhand trams. This is one from Riga. You can see the resistors on the roof. Something they've done since 2014 in all over Ukraine is you see the national colors, the blue and the yellow. So bridges, sometimes poles and stuff. Quite nice. So this is a tram we rented for 2 hours, and we went everywhere except for line 3. We had asked for a KTM5, and we arrived in the depot, and the one they had scheduled for us had broken down, so they said niet. And we got a Tatra tram and still had fun, but had to do line 3 by car. You know, this strange lady, we encountered her a couple of times. We were there 1.5 days. She was wearing a mask and a woolly hat, so we couldn't see her face at all, but she didn't like her photo taken. Never mind. Whenever we saw her, we just pulled out the camera to show her. They have 2 snow plows in the depot. I think the new one is used still. They have a plinth KTM5 outside the depot. Not sure if it ever ran there. It has a very strange number, I don't know, 105 or something. The others have all lower numbers, and it's just sitting there, and it's probably just a shell. No equipment left inside, but quite nice. So we are still in Sumy Oblast. A little further east is Sumy, which is a trolleybus network which has some very long lines like this one here. It doesn't mean that it sees a lot of service or very frequent service. There's also another one, you can't see it up here much. I have stuff in the way here. But it's a very nice little system, and it's got interesting backgrounds. It's got industry, it's got socialist housing, the old style, a bit newer. Than it has an old looking church, which is probably built new, because under the Soviets, most churches were either used for something else or were demolished. And we went to the depot once. I'm not sure if they were rebuilding it or scrapping it. A lot of new stuff has arrived. We see 2 different, there's the Bogdan here, and there is it's a Minsk-based one, I think. And some of them can run without wires. They have batteries, and because of roadworks near the railway station or outside the railway station, this line had to use a diversion, and it could do so by just not running under the wires. There's a big bridge. I spent a lot of time there. My friends were in the shopping mall behind us buying all sorts of things, and it took forever, so I probably spent almost an hour there. I photographed everything they have, and the sun was out. It was quite nice. This is near the line to the southeast. It's not at the end, but still on the main road out of the town. And even here you can see some older version of this patriotic style. Shevchenko here. It's their famous man who is on everywhere you see monuments, statues of him everywhere. So there's probably something he wrote. We spent a lot of time here to take a picture on this very long industrial lines heading out southeast here, crossing a railway, the industrial railway. This is still in service here. It took forever. And I think there was only 2 trolleybuses on this very long line. So the headways on some of the trolleybus systems in Ukraine is not very good. Sometimes you only have 1 trolleybus out, or maybe 2, and you can either wait half an hour or 55 minutes or something like that. And it wasn't very busy. They have very few of the articulated. This is it's a good question. So UMZ, I think. The UMZ. It only runs in the rush hour. And I was lucky, I think after this, it disappeared in the depot. some years before, we paid a visit to the depot, which was quite full of stuff, and it also has a KTG, of course. And Poltava is not all that far. All the maps look a bit different. Sometimes you have blue lines, sometimes you have green lines, but this is all trolleybus. It's not very big. It's not a very big network, but it's quite a nice little town. And they have a lot of these here. It's I think it's the system in Ukraine that has the most of this type of trolleybus. This is a one-off. It's a UMZ whatever. Didn't run anymore. It used to run before, and they have rebuilt some of these with a quite modern looking body. In the distance you see how they looked before, and the new paint scheme is yellow, so everything gets painted yellow. It has a little almost interurban line which leaves the city boundary and it goes to this little village here. It's not very far from the city limits, but it's in a different little town. Downtown here. This one is coming back from the railway station. And this one I drove in the depot. They allowed me to operate this. It's also another rebuilt T2, I think it is, and quite easy, quite different to operate a KTG, which has no power steering, and it's much more difficult to operate. We are now in Kharkiv, which has trams, trolleybuses, and a metro. And here we have a map that shows both the trams and the trolleybuses. The red lines are the trams. Some of these lines are very long. I think this one is under threat, I read recently. They want to close it, and that probably means the end of all of it. The metro runs parallel here. So the metro has already meant the abandonment of some of the tram lines. Trolleybus services are all over the place. Not a very big system, but long lines, and when you ride them, it takes a while. Here we are in downtown Kharkiv, and this is a second-hand tram from one of the Czech systems, I think, looking quite nice. This one came from Riga and is still in the Riga paint scheme. The railway station is in the distance somewhere here on the right. It's quite busy streets, old-fashioned street running. They did rebuild some of the Tatras. Some look quite nice. Some look a bit like this. Somebody recently mentioned this and said, "Oh, it looks like a Dalek from Doctor Who." I'm not sure what the view is for the driver with these very big metal bars here obstructing the view of the road ahead. They have 3 of these, I think. Yes, and we were lucky. We were standing here for a while, and all sorts of interesting cars approached us here, as you will see. Is this the same car? Yes, it's the same car. The next day we rented this, and we had a little private tour around the system. And here we have a little single track stretch. It used to be double track, but then they rebuilt the bridge and the roadway, and they made it single track for the trams. And of course, we have a driver there, a friend of ours, and we do photo stops everywhere, no problem. This is still downtown, and as you can see, some of the Soviet paintings on houses. Often they are mosaics. Here it's painted survive some hero from the Second World War, I guess. And I think this is a secondhand tram as well. Yes, I like the style they paint the fleet numbers. This is one of the T3Ms, not in a very good condition, and they are getting T6s from Prague now, which are much smaller, much narrower than these. Some very nice architecture around Kharkiv. You have to look for it, but it's easy, and there's a lot of lines that are quite nice. I mean, the real nice picture here would have been the beautiful church on the left, but the sun was wrong, and I think I did on a previous visit I managed. But I like the greenhouse and then the radio mast. And this street has since been rebuilt, I think. They have very few of this KTM. I'm not quite sure what the number is. Is it 19? Which arrived in 2013. I think it's the only operator in the Ukraine that has a number of these, maybe about 10. This is the railway station loop. It's still in the factory livery, which you see all over, or what used to be the standard in the Soviet Union. Everything arrived in a specific color, and you kept it. You never repainted it. Here's one of the Tatra trams. This is in the housing estate in the north, and it's a metro which takes people downtown, and it's probably much faster taking the metro than going on the tram, which this line 27 does avoid downtown, but it gets you near it. It's quite busy, as you can see. Another of the loops in the housing estates. Drivers are always quite interested. Some are quite friendly, and they ask you in and they show you the cab. And we've never had any problems in Ukraine taking photos so far. We've been very lucky. This is the line that heads southeast. It might be under threat. If one bit of it goes, then this has to go because there's no other connection. It serves industry. The metro parallels it. Trolley buses parallel it in a street. Track is quite bad, and there's a lot of factories here. I don't think they're quite as busy as they used to be, which is the case in many Ukrainian cities. This used to be a typical photo in Kharkiv, and I've been there 4 times, I think, and at least on 3 occasions we saw derailments due to the bad state of the track and the points, the switches here. And here we see one. I was lucky we were there at the right time. I think this one actually delayed our private hire charter on a historic vehicle. It couldn't leave the depot, which is off to the left, up here, and everything was blocked for, I think, 45 minutes. But they are used to this. This junction has been completely rebuilt, and it looks very smooth. So probably no more derailments here, but there are still bits of bad track in other areas. So I think if you go there, you might still be able to see a derailment somewhere. Here we have the original main depot, which used to be a very big area with a workshop, trolley bus workshop. There's the permanent way yard with the permanent way fleet. But the depot itself is closed, but for a reason of track work somewhere, they use the forecourt of this old depot to store a lot of the trams on lines. As you can see here, 27 and 6, and probably another one as well. So there are probably about 10, 15 trams there. And this, of course, is a second-hand one. It still looks quite nice. When they come and they buy them, they make them up. And the ones that went to Konotop came from Kharkiv, and they were nicely redone there as well. Here's another modernized Tatra with a quite earlier front. I think there used to be 3 of them, and at least 2 of them have been rebuilt into this more ugly shape now. The industry, always people everywhere. This is another charter we had. It says here trial run proba, which allowed us to make photo stops everywhere and go everywhere. I don't think we paid for this, so our friends there always make a great show when we go there. This is the historic tram they have, 4-wheeler, 2-axle, downtown with the little Soviet Moscow style skyscraper. It's quite small, actually. It's the only one they have. And we had a charter on this vehicle. unfortunately, 5 minutes after we took this photo, it broke down. Something dropped down. I'm not quite sure what it was, something to do with the brakes or something. And it could still run, but it limped back to the old depot. And here it is. This is where we saw the lineup of Tatra cars earlier with our crew. And they dropped it there, and the charter was over. There was no alternative, no other vehicle available. So we paid less money, of course, but we still had about 2 hours before that happened. Oops, this is a bit awkward. I don't know why it's out of, it's not aligned. I'm sorry. Don't know what happened there. This I found in October last year, and I thought, oh my God, here's one of the old Soviet T3 SUs with only 2 doors, because that used to be the norm with all the original Tatras in the Soviet Union. But it turns out it used to be a work car in Prague, where they had actually removed the center door. And when they gave that away with other trams to Kharkiv, and they rebuilt it and repainted it, made it into a passenger car, and it ran on line 7. And there's the driver, and he was very nice. We made photo stops with him with passengers on board, just a few minutes here and there. And also in October last year is our friend Vova again, who always is our operator when we do the charters there. They had this tram from Minsk on trial. I think it's still there, but it's no longer in use. They only ran it for a couple of days, maybe 1 or 2, 3 weeks in October. It's a Stadler-built tram, and Stadler, I think, has told the Kharkiv politicians that they're willing to build a factory there if they buy their tram. So this came from Belarus. I've actually ridden this in Belarus, in Minsk, and they brought it here, and people liked it. I'm not sure if it's going to be the future for Kharkiv, but we'll see. It's a question of money, of course. We saw it again going the other way, and then we noticed that this rear segment of the tram is rather at an angle, which it could be the track here. It looks a bit strange. We didn't see that in other places, so it's probably the location here. And it did actually scrape the ground here. There was a bit of a little dust, sand dust cloud rising up once it passed this. Here's one of the works cars. It's used to be a passenger car. They rebuilt it. They put a new square front on it, and it's used to do what it does here. Funnily enough, we actually were in the southern depot, and we were taking photos there, and the tram number 4 was sitting there. And then they told us that they are going to drive into town to collect, to rescue a stricken tram, and they allowed us a ride on the works car into downtown. And so we had a nice little ride on this. And then later we saw it again when it had found the tram it was looking for and bringing it back to the depot. They have rebuilt a number of the Tatra cars for various purposes. Here there is an open section here, so you can put stuff in there with a crane. And we also had a charter in this tram at one stage, but this was in service running back to the depot. And here is another one we saw. Actually, on that day, I think we saw 5 works cars in service, which was quite nice. Sometimes one is lucky, and we have to be at the right spot at the right time. At the back, this is the original rear end, also modified. But as you can see, the fronts, probably because of rust, they were often replaced with something square and ugly. But the original ones were quite nice. They have lots of snow plows. They've scrapped some of these now. They have trolley buses. There's 3 depots. This is well, it's when it was built, the company was called Trollsa. It's the old Zio factory, which now is closed down. But Kharkiv has purchased a lot of new trolley buses. This was 1 year we were here. This is not in passenger service. Shlushepny, I think it says, which is it's a work service doing something, heading to one of the loops. but I think they used it in service as well, other times of the day. Here's one that looks a bit better. They have still a number of these. This is a private charter, a rental we did last of October, and it has been repainted. This Zio S9 has been repainted into an old style livery. It has a permanent display up here which says reserved, rezervni, but they do use it in service, so they maintain it so they can run it if it's needed. And we had a 3-hour charter with it, and we went to various places with nice backgrounds, and I think we succeeded here. This is what they're getting now. It's a new company. I've forgotten where it's from. They have supplied vehicles to 2 systems, I think. I think they're all with batteries as well. This is downtown. And a couple of years ago, nothing of this modern stuff was available. There's a T1 here. They have some Škodas. Unfortunately, many of them already out of service. I mean, they arrived all secondhand. They probably arrived with a digital display as well, but they are at the end of their useful life mostly, and they don't seem to repair them anymore. Another charter private hire we did in front of one of the universities, and our friends parked the trolley bus here quite nice at an angle, not much traffic around on this Sunday afternoon. And they did some nice stuff for us. Here, Andre actually is holding down the poles so that there's no wired connection down to this university, which is down here on the right. There is service up here. And I mean, with a bit of speed and pulling down the trolley poles, and then it goes downhill a bit. We did this at a couple of locations, and it worked perfectly. We never had any problems. Quite a bit of work here for poor Andre, but he did very well. They have some non-passenger Zios as well, and of course KT8. Every depot has at least one. And this is one. Earlier, I showed you a map of all the areas we're going to see in this presentation, and it doesn't include Donbass. But we went to this depot, the main old depot in Kharkiv, and first they didn't want to let us inside, and we looked through the windows, through the doors, and we saw this tram there, and it turns out it's a tram from Makivka, which originally went to Dnipro in 2009, and then to Kharkiv in 2015. It's never been in service in Dnipro and Kharkiv. The system itself in Makivka closed in 2006, and it originally came from Kryvyi Rih, and then it went to Dnipro. I think they were going to restore it externally to put it up like a monument of the closed tramway system, but they didn't do that in their hometown because the tram depot was closed. Everything was pulled down. So they sent it to Dnipro, and eventually it ended up here. Now it's dumped in the main northern depot, and it's rusting away. So I don't think it'll go back to Makivka, which is on the wrong side on the Donbass anyway. So we are heading now into Donbass. I've been there twice, and we never had any problems. We never felt unsafe or in danger. And the first town is Severodonetsk. It's in the Luhansk Oblast. And as you can see here, it's a nice little system. This is all industry here, not very frequent service. And for a long time, also the downtown line here didn't run, but in October it did. We've been to the depot there once. It was raining very, very heavily. You can't really see it here. We were lucky. They have some more modern buses and some older ones. This is downtown. Here's a Zio, and they have these BKMs. And this is at the terminus, one of the industry termini, is a KTG. And right next door, up the hill, you can, when you are in Severodonetsk and you look south, you can actually, up on the hill you see Lysychansk, and in this map you can see it. Up here is this Severodonetsk where we've just been, and Lysychansk is up on the hill. It's only one line survives. There used to be another one here, and there used to be one here, but that's long gone. So only one line, and usually only 2 trolley buses in service. There is talk about running a trolley bus in battery mode from the Severodonetsk system to Lysychansk railway station. Why? Because Severodonetsk does not have a railway station. The railway station for the area is in Lysychansk, or rather at the bottom of Lysychansk, quite a long way away from the town. And so I don't know which way they will go here. There is a bridge here, there's another bridge here, but probably it will not connect with the Lysychansk system, which is rather poor and always short of money. As you can see here, they keep various old trolley buses for spare parts. And they have some Lviv built trolley buses here, 3 of them, only one runs. There it is. These heaps here from mining heaps. One has to be very patient there. When you go there, and only 2 trolley buses run, if you're lucky, to run long headways, and but well worth a visit, I think. And they've repainted 77 by now. So now we come to Bakhmut. We are leaving Luhansk Oblast, the bit that is still in free Ukraine and not occupied. We're now in Donetsk Oblast, where also they retaken some of the previously occupied areas, and we only went to the areas where you can go. I mean, you can't go to the occupied territories. It's too dangerous. It's not allowed, and it's too dangerous. Bakhmut is rather small. They have now one line here which runs with battery mode, supplementing the system. You see that more and more. Downtown is quite nice. This is the bus station, which was completely dead. There were no buses, only these 2 people, I think. And they've rebuilt one of the ZUs, the only one that exists. I think it was done by a company, local or nearby from the area, and they only ever did this one. It's quite nice, like a frog. I think they call it the frog. They have rebuilt some of the UMZs with a more modern body and a new front and digital displays. They have Trolleybuses. This one is heading out of town north. The terminus is actually a roadblock. You still have roadblocks there, which are manned either by the army or by freedom fighters that fight for the country, or for border police. So we didn't go all the way there. I don't think they like photos, but down here it was okay. Near the depot, it crosses this industrial railway line that heads into a factory. Quite nice. We went to the depot once, and here's one of the last. This is the last articulated one they had left. It hadn't been in service for a very long time. And behind it, you can see a KTG freight trolley bus. There it is. Sloviansk, further south, trolley bus system really only has 3 lines, which is the 2, the 8, and the 7. The 5B used to be a trolley bus line, but it has been out of service for a very, very long time. But only recently, with the introduction of trolley buses that can run with battery power, they reopened it. When we were there, it only ran as far as here, I think, because the bridge was out and they were rebuilding the bridge. Yes, it's actually here near the milk factory. But they do run it again, but I think it's only 1 bus on it. So even here, the 2 and the 8, the 8 only runs weekends, and the 2, I think there's 1 bus on it. So quite disappointing. This is from an earlier visit. It was still fairly busy. Then some of the systems have the city name, the town name on the front end. It says Lysychansk. It's near it's approaching the railway station. This is also on the main road from the railway station. This is near the railway station, not at the railway station. Etalon, more modern, low floor. Same location. And when we were there in the depot some years ago, this one had just come in, and I think they've all been retired now. This Sloviansk has only 2 or 3 old trolley buses left in service. All the rest is modern stuff like this. This one is on the 5B and it's approaching our hotel. It's just come back from the bridge. I think it's reopened now, so it goes all the way. Maybe two buses are used, but it's all off wire until it rejoins the main street. This one had just arrived when we were there first time, and they were very proud to show it to us. I found it rather boring. I'd rather had a ride on one of the old ones, but they have this nice KTG trolley bus freight vehicle. Then we come to Kramatorsk, and I could have visited the tram in Kramatorsk. It closed in 2017, and I was there in 2017. I'm in Ukraine, but we were there with a large group by coach, and we felt it would be too dangerous running this as a tour with 45 people going as far east as that. So unfortunately, I missed it. But the trolley bus is still there. This is a map that shows both the tram and the trolley bus. You can see the tram used to go here and up here, and this line and that line. So not very large. Trolley bus much larger. The trams used to go to the railway station. They have since reintroduced battery operated lines. And this one is quite interesting. We went on it. They used to have 2 trolley buses from Winterthur in Switzerland. Only one ran when we visited the first time. It didn't run in 2021, last October. I actually supplied them with drawings, technical drawings, which I got from Winterthur, which when we were there the first time in the depot, the director said, well, we can't repair this. We don't know. We don't have any manuals. It came via a dealer. And so I organized all this. And when we came next time, the director had gone and the new one had no interest whatsoever. They are running these MZKs now. They're rebuilding some of the older ones, the UMZ here, which they're sprucing up. This is outside the depot, another city that has proudly displays the name Kramatorsk on the front. A few survive. They've scrapped a lot. This is heading off to the railway station. It used to be tram, and I actually, on the right-hand side, you can't see it here, discovered an old tram stop sign still up on a post, which they had forgotten, but I couldn't take it down. It was too difficult. This is that battery-operated line that heads south, and it's all off-wire. We went to the terminus, and I noticed there were a lot of soldiers around, so they asked us not to take photos there, so we went back a little further here, and I managed to get a picture of 2 passing here. This is in downtown. There's some big complex here where you see the United Nations peacekeeping force. Maybe they are arriving there in the distance. They always drive around in convoys and they observe the Minsk peace treaty. And they have a KTG as well, of course. Now still in Donetsk, we are heading for another tram system, which is Drushkivka. I've been there twice. Last time everything ran. First time I went there, not everything ran. First time, and still today, they have a lot of KTMs. I mean, maybe six or 8, but very few of them are used now. I think they're down to 1. When we went there first, they had many more running. Here's an interior view, rather barren, rather wooden seat backs, and yeah, not very comfortable, but very sturdy. This one here, we visited the depot one visit, and we asked if we could rent a tram, and he said, no, I don't have anyone, but I have this tram that goes out as a works car. It's labeled for number 2, but it says depot here, and there was an old man in there, and I think they were collecting rubbish or leaves or something. And they drove us around half of the network for free, which was nice. And we had a quick photo stop here by one of the old, probably a mine. It's probably gone, but the monument is still there. This is what they have now. They run with the secondhand Trams. This bridge used to be double track. The line itself to the porcelain factory going this way was out of service for many years, but they brought it back. But they only brought it back single track. It's not very heavily used. Here there's the junction of some of the lines here. Downtown, quite ugly Soviet style buildings in some of the places, but they also have these very nice tree-lined reservations. This is heading towards the depot. Around midday, this kind lady here, we later met her in the depot and bought her a cup of tea. Around about two hours or 2.5 hours midday, there is no service. All the cars run back to the depot and there's no service at all. And then they come all out again. This is at the railway station. Inside the depot. Some of the Tatras they have, I think 3 of them, have not run in years, if ever. There is no plow, more modern type. And then we're leaving Donbass again. All the other nice systems, both tram and trolleybus, are all on the wrong side of the border there. So maybe one day I'll be able to visit them. But here we are heading back west now into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. The city itself used to be called Dnipropetrovsk, but it's been renamed Dnipro, which is the name of the river, of course, Dnieper in Russian, Dnipro in Ukrainian. And they have trams, trolleybuses, and metro. This is the map. Blue is trolleybus, not very many lines, mostly tram, and also a lot of parallel running. That used to be the case in many Soviet systems. The tram lines couldn't cope within the rush hour with all the people going to the factories. So sometimes they had both tram and trolleybus serving the same corridor. This is outside one of the, this is the Eastern Depot. It's some quite nice buildings there, some old Tatras. They have the KTM 8s, a bit more modern. And they also have 1 or 2 streets which are unmade, so-called tramway streets. And well, some of the drivers, Dnipro is one of the cities where some of the drivers did not like us taking photos, but they usually either showed us a finger or shielded their face, but we didn't have real problems. We just ignored them and took photos anyway. Very recently, trams have arrived from Leipzig mainly, I think some from Dresden, but mostly Leipzig, and they have repainted them in this rather nice paint scheme, and I think all the trams will eventually look like this. This is at the railway station at T3M. They have a lot more advertising liveries here, and they have the Berlin T6 trams. And last time we stayed in Dnipro, we went to a hotel that served no breakfast. It was very cheap. So we headed on the tram, it was by the terminus of this line, headed into town and wanted to buy a day ticket. Usually day tickets are not available in Ukraine. You have to buy single tickets, usually from conductors, but sometimes conductors have been got rid of and you have to buy them in machines or from kiosks. Sometimes the drivers sell them, but here they have little offices, little dispatcher offices, where there is a dispatcher that checks the timing of the trams, comes out, and the drivers go in and have a cup of tea. And there's a little cafeteria inside, and everybody can go. And then we had a nice little breakfast, very, very Soviet, it felt to me, very old-fashioned, very cheap. And we discovered you can buy the day pass there. But then in Dnipro, since probably last year, they also sell them on the trams. The conductors sell them, which is rather nice, very cheap. Here's a KTM 5. They have modernized in the new livery, but the fancy white paintwork isn't there yet. This is the western terminus, and there's a metro here. And another Leipzig tram, and you can see there's a lot of industry in Dnipro. There is also a line that goes across the Dnipro River, and there was a plan to build a fast road through this factory here. It was never built, so you see all this stuff on this end, and on the other side of the factory is another tram line. You see also some preparations for this kind of motorway, which was never built. But it's quite nice for taking pictures here. And this is what Dnipro is most famous for, I think, is the rocket factory, the Yuzmash rocket factory, which is not at this location, but downtown. They have erected these 3 rockets to show what they can do. They built trolley buses, they built rockets, they built trams. And who else? What else? Who knows what else they built? We don't know. This is by the old bridge. Is a KTM 5 approaching this. This is heavily fenced in. Last year, there is a little outpost up here, elevated, a little cabin, and there used to be a soldier there looking out, and they didn't like us taking photos. But in October there was nobody there. They have given it up because, I mean, this is strategically could be dangerous in case of war. I mean, somebody might blow it up. They have a very large fleet of works cars. Here's just one. Actually, here there is a little line into a tiny little depot, and I have to confess, I've never managed to get in there yet. I've seen over the fence, over the wall, there's 1 or 2 in there, but then they have about 10 works cars in the main depot here. And they use them a lot. Here you can see tram and trolley bus crossing the old bridge, heading north into the northern city, which is all modern or high-rise buildings. And they also have some articulateds left, T2, a T1. Some of them look quite nice. They have, this was built in Dnipro. I'm not quite sure if it's not maybe also a MZK really from White Russia, but assembled in Dnipro. So it has the Dnipro badge on the front. Most of these others, not all of them, are buses from Scandinavia, which diesel or propane buses. And the KTG also runs around. Right next door, and still in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, is the city of Kamyanske. It used to be called Dnipro-Dzerzhinsk, after Dzerzhinsky, the man who founded the secret police in the Soviet Union. But they renamed it Kamyanske. It's a tram city, and you see 1 or 2 years it was 85 years old. Very mixed scenery downtown, nice old Stalin type architecture. And then it goes out into the suburbs with its own reservation with center poles and very small houses everywhere. There's a bit of industry here. I think it crosses a road and a railway, or maybe just only a road. This is all connecting with the industry. This is heading out east, out on line 3, which is all industrial and very smelly. We stayed there at on one visit, and the fumes that came out of the factory were terrible. And this is the classic view of Kamyanske. We are looking down into downtown, which is down here. In the distance, you see the main combinat, the Dmk, which is also the city terminus of all the trams. We will see a photo in a minute. And fumes everywhere. And it's quite a steep hill here. So the trams have to stop. There is a signal there, and they have to check the brakes. And the fleet is now being taken over by second-hand T6s from Prague. But they also have some other second-hand older types. This is at the Dmk Loop. Bit smelly here, but quite nice. This is looking the other way. Earlier we stood up here, and now we've walked back from the Dmk. This is near the junction here, looking into the industry on line 3, I think. Outside the depot is this old KTM1 plinth. And this is the Dmk Loop. And I always, when I look at this, I think a UFO has landed here. It's quite nice. It's dispatcher's office and probably mostly empty, but there were some people in there. And they have a works car, Tatra. It's a training car. The U, this is the letter U, indicates training, and it's sitting at the entrance of the old tram depot, which is gone. They have completely demolished it. They only have one tram depot now, and this one they gave up, but they left the little triangle here. And not very far from Dnipro is Zaporizhia. I'm looking at the time here. Zaporizhia in Zaporizhia Oblast, which has trams and trolleybuses. Blue trolleybus, quite a number of them, but also a lot of tram lines. Services on the trolleybuses, unfortunately, during my last 2 visits, not very frequent. I mean, even here downtown, sometimes you had to wait 20 minutes before you saw a trolleybus. What we can't see, what you don't see anymore in Zaporizhia is the old Tatras. They have all been retired, and they looked rather bad. As you can see, lack of money meant they were not able to buy replacement windows, so they built their own version. This is near the depot. It's one of the industrial areas here. But we see now, and we've seen this one, they have some of these in Odessa and some other places. It's similar to the, it's a more modern version of this modern vehicle we saw earlier in Kiev, which the original version is called Kashtan or chestnut. Not sure what this one is called. It's probably still a chestnut, but it has this new type of front and rear end now. And they have quite a number of these. And they've also repainted the T3Ms, which they seem to keep. The T3s are all gone, the old ones, but the T3Ms are still there. And there is a Kashtan, same as we saw a minute ago, but with the original front, which they built. And they used some, they built them so they can reuse old Tatra equipment, like trucks and some electrics and things. They have a large number, probably 10, I think more than 10, of ex-Berlin T6s taken right by our hotel here, which was nice. I usually try when I book hotels to have them near the tramway, and this one was excellent and cheap. And this is quite frequent. They run to the railway station, past this big factory here, some car factory. That's probably where they used to build the Zaporizhia motor car. And they have a lot of works cars. This one returning to the depot. Inside the depot, various, all rebuilt, of course. These are older types where they rebuilt the cabs. Trolleybuses. Now you don't see any advertising or shrink wrap anymore. Everything has been repainted to this rather old-fashioned livery. It's on the trams, it's on the trolleybuses. This one we rented. We chartered it here, and we saw the white smoke in the distance, so we thought that will make a good photo. And later more and more white clouds appeared. It's a very industrial city. So the main street downtown is rather nice and has all the usual buildings on it. They did purchase a number of, they did purchase a number of trolleybuses from Arnhem in the Netherlands, which run here. This is in the extreme east beyond the railway station. Very many houses, yeah. Downtown, KTG, of course. And then we are heading back to Donetsk Oblast, which is very far in the south on the sea there. It's in an area where you can go, but the border is rather nearby. And this is a map that shows both trams and trolleybuses. The trams are these orange and red lines, so you find them only up here. And then the rest here in this bluish and green is trolleybus. This is very industrial here, and this is very industrial here. And there are no more KTM 5s running there. They have all been retired, and they've all been replaced by secondhand Tatras. It's terrible when you go with a group of people. There's always somebody taking photos there. Yeah. they get in the way. These are all secondhand, various batches, some with more modern front displays. They have a couple of these K1s, which are painted in this livery. Unusual, because all the other ones all still carry the factory livery, or the other ones in Ukraine, I mean. And this photo here, it wasn't easy to take. We had to wait a long time before the tram arrived, and all the haze you see here is smog, because here on the left are huge rubbish heaps. They dump rubbish there, and when it's windy, and nearby you have all the industry, I mean, the air quality in Mariupol is rather poor. This is by the central Rynok, the market. As you can see here, everything you need to buy is available in these markets. They don't have supermarkets like we do. They do have a few, of course, smaller and also some very large ones, but most of the people still go to these markets. A lot of KTMs retired in the depot. Unfortunately, there was nothing there I could use. Some of them have been rebuilt into little huts. They have these two. I think they're also St. Petersburg built. Only one runs, and it had broken down. I caught it here, and there was something wrong with the strange pantograph it has, like a Lyra Bügel. So I think it got pushed by the other tram to the depot. I used to have this nice training KTM 5, which unfortunately has been retired. It has all sorts of stuff inside to show motormen what to do as a driver, traffic rules and stuff. And we're back at the market because I spotted this works car going around, and I chased it by trolleybus. And the trolleybus runs up here in the street about a block away, and I managed to take pictures of it at various locations. Some other works cars in the depot also with a rebuilt homemade back end. So I think it's a snow blower. And I think they have two of these, though I've only ever seen one of them. And it's a little depot in the north, like a permanent way yard, but the trams usually turn round here. And this was actually a tram we had rented, charter tram. It has the U, the training car symbol in it, but it was there for us. They don't have a sign saying Sonderfahrt or private hire special. And again, another city where you can see trolleybuses and trams on one of the main roads heading north towards the industry. The depot itself was rather void of interesting old trolleybuses. There was only one Skoda left, and they have retired almost everything old now, and it's all either these new MZKs. By the way, you see dogs a lot running around. Most have tags in their ears, so they have been neutered. Romania was another country that had all these stray dogs. Ukraine has them, but mostly in quieter towns or in suburbs, not really downtown. There's one or two Trolleybuses left, but not in service anymore. As you can see, the depot itself was rather empty. Here is a Dnipro downtown. And Mariupol was famous for these ex-Solingen trolley buses. They had quite a number of these, and I think they've kept 2 or 3 as training cars. And here it passes the old city government building, which was bombarded or damaged during the 2014 war. And I've seen this 2 or 3 times now, and now they've started to rebuild it, to bring it back to life. Okay, so this is the end of part 1, and I'm going to switch over to part 2, and we continue our trip. We go to Kherson. Only trolley buses. All the various types, the regular types, still some articulated ZU10s running, not many, 2 or 3, I think, in last October, rush hour. This is here our hotel. And this trip we did last time, we had our friend from Kiev driving us around all the way to Zaporizhia, and then he had to go back to Kiev. And then we decided to travel the rest of the way using taxis. And some of these taxi rides took, 2 hours minimum. I think one took almost 5 hours. And Mariupol to Kherson was the longest. I think it was more than 5 hours, but very cheap. We were 3 people, and we shared the taxi price. And I think for everybody it was well under 80 euros. So for 6 hours, not bad. Most of the others were much cheaper. That allowed us to go everywhere, but we were running short on time, and we didn't really have time for Kherson. But as it's such a long way from Mariupol heading back west, Kherson is the only place you can go to, and we decided just to stay in the hotel and then continue on straight away. So I left the hotel at around 6 o'clock in the morning, well before breakfast, and managed to take some photos. This is from an earlier trip. This is from October again. This is a Lviv, a modern Lviv type in advertising livery for a football club, all on the street leading to the hotel. So I walked all the way here to downtown where there is a junction. Previous visit, we rented this trolley bus, but they didn't want to let us into the depot. Here is an Icarus non-passenger, like a work car. And we rented this trolley bus and we drove around, and here at this loop, the trolley bus driver did something wrong. It either wanted to get away, out of the way to the trolley bus behind or something, but it ended up in a position where he was unable to put the wire, the trolley poles back to the wire. So we had to push. Here he still tries. And we pushed, and as you can maybe see, the surface is a slight incline here. So pushing was not easy. Luckily, there were, I think, about 5 or 6 young men in the waiting shelter. They're waiting for a proper trolley bus. I think sea cadets, not in uniform. So we commandeered them, and they helped us to push the trolley bus a little further up this way, so we could eventually managed to reconnect the poles to the wires, and we gave them a lift home back into town. And they have, this is a Bogdan here. Yeah, but we didn't take many pictures last August, but we headed straight to Mykolaiv, which is another tram and trolleybus town. Trolleybus in blue, tram in red. There is only one little stretch here which is not in service, also the line to the depot. Here's an old depot which is out of use. And here is a very mixed fleet, and usually kept in rather good shape. So they have a lot of these old KTM5s, all painted very nicely and looking very nice. This is the north, it's a northeastern suburb here with a little lake in the distance. This is in the depot, another KTM8. They're rebuilding some of these KTM5s. Every one they rebuilt looks a bit different. We actually chartered this tram, and this piece of track is only in use during rush hour. So we had a couple of photo stops on it. There was no other service. Here, this looks like a Tatra T3M, but it's actually built by Tatra Yuk. And there's a few in Ukraine that were built by Tatra Yuk in Dnipro, I guess. But they're identical to the T3Ms. This is, again, at the Rinok at a time when it had almost finished. When it's really busy, it's almost impossible to take photos there. This is a secondhand tram from Pilsen, I think, yes. There's a little loop here. They kept the color, the paint scheme. This is by the market again. As we were waiting for trams to come here, all these stall holders, they all packed up and left. So eventually there were none left. Same location we had earlier, this little loop. This is near our hotel. This is on the western end. It's a K1 in the factory livery, which you see nearly everywhere except in Mariupol. And here they are rebuilding two more KTM5s, again, slightly different front. This one is also rebuilt, again, another rebuilt, another design for the front end. They have snow plows in very good condition. And they have works cars. This one we caught in service. The other we caught them doing actually work. There's more dogs, trolley buses, second-hand from somewhere in the Czech Republic. It's a Lviv type by the railway station. And they had a fire in the trolley bus depot some years ago. I think it was arson. And this trolley bus stood next to the one that got destroyed, but they want to keep this. And they brought it to the main tram workshop and are restoring it. They're rebuilding it. This is the new era. I think they have probably 20 or 30 of these now. So all the old stuff will all be retired very shortly. The director was very enthusiastic, and he explained that they made this loan facility, and they purchased a lot of these new trolley buses. It's Dnipro built one. And an older Lviv type KTG by the tram depot, doing work, running between the tram depot, which is the workshop, and the trolley bus depot. And then we head to Odessa. It's quite a long way away. It's got trams, trolley buses, and a little funicular. It's impossible to show a good map of it because it's very long. There is no line yet that goes all the way south to north, but these lines are very, very long, and you can just see a little bit of trolley bus here and a little bit here. Odessa has a very mixed streets, unmade. This is in the south somewhere. This is on the way. There's a halfway loop, a reservation. Also from earlier days when they didn't have money to buy proper windows. This is the swamp line, line 20. It's returned from the line that goes through the swamp, and it crosses under the railway bridge here. It's another Kashtan type, which is basically, it's all new. I don't think they used much, maybe old trucks, old bogies. And this is the new paint scheme. It used to be blue for a while, and now everything is in this nice three-tone livery. This is in the north somewhere. They have some K1s in advertising livery. That's the paint scheme that was in use before. K, I think, always indicates a short run. I mean, it doesn't run the full length. This is the big downtown terminus by the railway station, and the main depot is here in the background. This is one of the lines heading south. Another K1. Lots of advertising liveries. Nice scenery. This is the same location here. Nice little church or monastery. Downtown loop again. And this one we rented. They have this, well, it's not a real historic one. You see, it's been, I would call it a Disneyland type tram, but it's original, only it's been modified a bit. And we drove it around for 2 or 3 hours. And then here we wanted to go straight. And usually there is no service going straight. Everything turns right. So our driver stood there for about 20 minutes. Later, there were trams behind us. And he eventually managed to move the switch so we could go, but he could not reset it. So the permanent way crew had to come and rescue all the trams behind because they couldn't go on their line. This is at another location. It's quite a nice tram. It's got these open sides, so you need nice weather for it. Unfortunately, they don't take you on all the lines because some of them are rather bad, in rather bad shape, and they don't want a derailment. This is at the end of line 19. You have to walk a little way, and it's an old tram. Is it a KTM2 or maybe some rebuilt pre-war tram? I think probably rebuilt pre-war, and it's on display here with this cannon. And there are all sorts of. There is a submarine. There are tanks. There are railway vehicles. It's a little park, and of course, all to do with the Second World War. And here are 2 replica trams, which serve as a cafe, rather well done. I wish I'd been there before they erected the sunroof here, but quite nice. They look real, but I think they're complete replicas. They have works cars. This is one of the, I said this earlier, all the old Soviet, the Tatra trams built for the Soviet Union usually were only 2-door, and this is one of the surviving. They have a few. Here's another one. I think this one we actually rented on another visit, not this time, training car. They now have a little museum in one of the old depots, which for a while was closed and is now actually the main workshops. Odessa privatized its main workshops, which were situated inside the main depot by the railway station. And the company went bust, I think. So they sold the area inside the main depot that used to be the workshops. And it's now a hotel, which actually caught fire. It was 2 years ago, I think. Inside the depot, built in a building like this, they inserted little 2-story cabins or little rooms inside. So they had to move the workshop to this disused depot, and Odessa is the only system in Ukraine where they did not want us to go into any of the depots. But we did, as you can see here, we did manage in the end, and this is before the museum was established here. They had a couple of interesting works cars here. Some have been restored. Unfortunately, they modernized them a bit, but at least they didn't scrap them. And the old museum, which was a kind of an exhibition room in the old depot, is slowly being moved to this new tram museum or transport museum, as it also has some trolley buses inside. Trolley buses are being modernized, or the fleet is renewed at a fast pace in Odessa. This is from an earlier visit, ZO9, and here we have is it a T1 or is it a UMZ? They look very similar. They then went green, like they did in Kharkiv. This is the railway station. Here's one that survives, I think, as a substation on the tramway. They have a couple of mobile substations that arrive there on tram tracks, and they have wheels under them, but this one is a trolley bus. This is the depot, and this is the trolley bus we chartered. I thought I asked for a private hire charter, then they might want to let us inside the depot, but no, we can only walk up to the bus, and no photos were allowed, only out here. So I've never been inside the trolley bus depot, and I understand all the interesting vehicles have all been scrapped now, so it's not worth going back there. But we did have a nice ride with it. and we did various photo stops along the way. They always set the route numbers up. I don't know why. It's not the right route, I think, not the right line. And this was taken in there in the old museum. So from Odessa, we're heading again a little east and then north to Kryvyi. They have a tram, the fast tram, and trolley buses. And I have to be a little faster, I think. Again, it's a very long system, but up here it's mostly trolley bus. The tram line, I think, goes here, the fast tram, and then you have some trams down here. And still mostly KTM5s on the city system. Some have been rebuilt. They also rebuilt some KTM8s. So one really has to look at the fleet list to see if this used to be a KTM5 or a KTM8. And now they're doing them in a more modern style. This is downtown. This is also downtown. I found this interesting here, the soldier touching the wire, which of course he isn't, but you can position yourself to make it look like that. K1, KTM8, the railway station. Also the railway station. Another rebuild, could be the same vehicle we saw earlier. And this is the fast tram. The fast tram mostly runs on its own right-of-way, and it's classified as a metro, and it's been built to metro standard. But I think two lines during rush hour make trips off the fast tramway and they go onto the city network. Only a very small number of cars are allowed, because I think the pantographs are different, and they might have problems with the overhead wires. So they don't want all of the fast trams to run onto the city network. Only selected vehicles are allowed to do that. This is close to where it rejoins the fast tram. This is the city depot, city tram depot with works cars. And Kryvyi is a system when you walk around it, you always see works cars, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 all day. Again, same vehicle, different visit, it was out again. The fast tram, this is the highlight of my trip in 2021 in October. We've been to Kryvyi before, and it was forbidden to take any photos on the fast tram. This has changed. There is a new director. To make it a little easier for him, we asked for a little charter, a private hire of this tram, which had been sitting here on this track when we arrived, and eventually it came towards us. And they allowed us to take photos everywhere. We were rather amazed, and we spent almost the whole visit, the whole day we were there only on the fast tram because of the novelty, because before that we could only ride it but not take any photos. And here we could take photos everywhere. This one stopped short before heading into the platform. This is the regular one. They run single cars, they run double cars. Of course, they have to drive on the left here because of island platforms. I think two they have. They have side platforms, of course. All the stations are a little different. Some are really underground, some are on a viaduct like here. This was taken out the front from our charter tram. And of course, we visited the depot, and it's always been a dream of mine to visit this. This is one of 2 articulated Tatras that were rebuilt somewhere. Maybe, I think in Kiev, they did it in Kiev. One has to say that the state of the cars is not extremely nice. Some of them are rather worn. I mean, all this dirt, of course, is from the pantograph. But you can really tell that there's no money available. This is one of the KTM 11s, which run back to back. They have doors on both sides. There used to be a little trailer in the middle, and I thought they had scrapped them all, but they hadn't, and we will see one in a minute. They are still repainting them, so they are spending some money. Here's one of the trailers. I think they had 3 or 4, but they have long been out of service, and they haven't scrapped them. They sit out there, not needed. Here's the other articulated one. I actually asked them to rent this one, but they said, no, you're only 4 people. It's not enough. You can only get a small tram. But then we went from station to station after the depot visit, and we were able to take photos at locations where other people we saw trying to take photos were chased away by the station staff. So they must have been alerted that our little group was there, and they allowed us free run of everything. This was taken during midday, so it's not very busy. They also have some works cars in there, of course, some not looking very nice, probably not running anymore, and some ex-railway vehicle. And another hut, an ex-KTM5 used as a little shed. Here's the tram as a trolley bus network. It's not a very good photo. It was very dark, and the lights, they couldn't switch the lights on in this hallway, but they switched on the line diagram. And there's a couple of depots and rather mixed fleet. They have old and new, some modern, of course. Some have been completely rebuilt, some with diesel engines at the back. I didn't get a picture for this show showing a diesel one. These are all electric only. Lviv. Now this one is here. This one is, that's not sure if it was rebuilt. I think it was rebuilt into this. So they can run off wire. And they also have KTGs, of course. Quick visit to Kropivnitsky, a little trolley bus network north of Kriviri. They have these battery operated lines in blue, these extensions everywhere. Very small system. The original company went bankrupt and it sold all the equipment, and then I think the city took over and they established a new one, and they bought a very small number of the original fleet, but mostly spent their money on new equipment. And it's quite a nice town. It's quite nice. Now we're heading back to Kiev. We are in Kremenchuk trolley bus, fairly long lines again. And when I was in Kremenchuk before, it was all old equipment like this, another city that puts the name up. They had some articulated ones. Here they were still working on these, and industrial line. But now everything has changed. All the old equipment has been replaced by these new, and they're all in this garish, in lilac or pink colors. Every series is has a different shade. And instead of putting the name up here, Kremenchuk is now on the side here. I love Kremenchuk, and it shows the famous bridge there. This is one of the lines. They call them A, means it goes beyond the regular route network, and P, the plus means it's battery. So there are variations of it. There is A, B, there's plus and not plus, but this is all the way southeast, and it's very busy. When we boarded it, we were glad to get a seat on this, and it took about, I think, 40 minutes to reach the terminus, and it was completely full of people. This is at the outer terminus. Here it's heading back from the bridge. This one hasn't put the wires up yet, the poles up yet. They have a KTG. Nearby is Cherkasy. It's all trolley bus. And I'm going a little faster here because we are running a little late. I probably chose too many pictures. Modern and old training bus, training trolley bus. Modern. The river station, when they used to have boats on them. Some articulated. These were all taken last October, still running. We rented this one. It's the only one they have. It was built in Kiev, or actually I think it was built in another factory, but it's called the Kievsky model. Antonov, I think, built either this or the others, and we rented it, and it was very nice. It does run in regular service every now and then. And the driver here, he put a tramway bell on his trolley bus, and whenever we saw him, he sounded his bell very, very loud, very friendly. Bila Tserkva is very close to Kiev. It's south of Kiev. White Church, it translates to White Church, trolley bus system. was a rather mixed fleet, getting more and more modern. Line 3, I think at the moment it doesn't run because they've rebuilt the bridge. It goes to Rotok, which is, I think it's either another town or it's a suburb of it. That's the main railway station is here, and also a huge factory, a tire factory, Lviv type. And this is the reason why we went again. I've been there a couple of times. This is the Rosava tire factory. They have 4 trolley buses, I think, from Budapest, but only 2 are still serviceable. And we arrived at around noon and we didn't see a single one of them. And we were contemplating going back to Kiev on the Marshrutka. And then I looked at the time and I said, oh, well, rush hour approaching. And out they came, both of them, 11 and 12. So we wrote them. Depot KTG. So we're heading west of Kiev, Vinica, trams and trolley buses. Not a very big system. It's probably about half trolley bus, half tram. They have this replica tram outside the main depot. And they have rebuilt a Gotha tram because it's meter gauge. They had trams from Gotha here. And this one has been Disneyfied. It's been made to look old, passing the permanent way yard. We actually rented this tram here. It's by the railway station, the Loop. They have a couple of museum vehicles in them, a T3 and a KT4. I haven't been able to rent any of these yet because I think they use the same numbers on regular trams. So they can only have one tram with that number out on the road. Some insurance thing, I think. They have little displays inside the depot. And they're famous, of course. Vinica is famous for the Zurich trams. Probably not for these, which are the Karpfen, the bogie trams, but these long ones, and they have, I think, 2, which are called the blind cows, and they have no control equipment. In Zurich, they ran as second cars, and here I think they were never used. We did have a charter here once where we ran them. And they are now rebuilding some of the old KT4s and also some of the T3s. In-house. So this is a local thing. Here you see that the main street heading towards the old town. All Zurich trams. Only one survives in advertising livery, and it had the advertising livery in Zurich, so they kept it. It's the only one in advertising livery. And a lot of the 4-axle Zurich trams have been used for spare parts, and I think they will slowly disappear. One they rebuilt into a kind of a party tram. I think the color has changed again. This is an older view. And again, another system where you see works cars every now and then in various guises. Here you can put rails in and stuff. Some of the old Gotha trams survive as trailers. They have modern trolley buses. They have old trolley buses. They're rebuilding them. Rinok again, big market, a railway station. This one here actually was painted to celebrate the Afghanistan war. They fought all these years ago. This one is retired. Trolleybus depot also has a little display. KTGs, of course. Now we come to Khmelnytsky. Khmelnytsky is a system I like because the director likes enthusiasts. Whenever we go there, we are either invited to a very nice lunch or we have to drink a lot of alcohol with him in his office. He's very nice. Unfortunately, he's a little older, so he might retire. I don't know. They have a very mixed fleet, and only recently they have started to receive new rolling stock. It's before there was all old, mostly Zeus. Here's one of the newer Bogdans in the depot. And this is slightly rebuilt. And this is Electron. It's the company in Lviv that produces trams and trolleybuses. View into the depot. This one, I think we rented on another visit. Now, Ternopil is close by. This is old trolleybus. When I went there the first time, they still had 2 Skoda 90Rs in service. This one painted up and decorated inside. Unfortunately, they have all been retired. This is the same vehicle. It has this theme of music and discs and CDs and stuff. It was in rather bad shape, but we had a nice run on it. This line here, this used to be the terminus in the north. It's now been extended through the old factory. This is downtown with a Lviv type. They have a lot of articulated trolley buses from the Czech Republic and some older. And if you want to spend some money, you can buy this body. It's an old 90R. It's only a body. I think it was supposed to be an imbis, a little snacketeria somewhere, but it didn't. The deal was called off, and it sits in the depot. It's probably still available if you want one. Yes, this one is still in use as a non-revenue vehicle pulling trolley buses, and this is actually here. It's pulling this one back to the depot. It had a problem. And the photo we saw earlier with the chimney stacks, this line has been now extended into the town. They've made it a big loop. And this used to be a private factory here, but you can see it's now it's a public road, and the factory is closed. And they run the trolley bus through it. And this one was taken inside the depot. This is, I don't usually do depot visits at night, but we had this big feast in Khmelnytsky with the director, actually without him, only with his underlings. And it took a long time before we arrived here in Ternopil, so it got dark, but we still walked around the depot. Chernivtsi in the south of the country, southwest, used to have trams, and here you can see one. It's an old body. I don't think this is authentic here, and all the old Soviet things are not very much in favor anymore. It used to have a red star around the headlamp, and now they've put this Ukraine logo there in black to hide the Soviet star. And here we can see at the trolley bus, the trams used to run here, of course, and this is the railway station on the right. And they do still have two 90Rs in service. This has been modernized. It's the university terminus, the railway station. They have some two-axle ex-Arnhem, Netherlands vehicles. It's a Lviv type, very bad road still downtown. Our charter here, our private hire, the railway station. Downtown. This one had a problem. You can see here this burning stuff. It stopped here. Everybody had to get out. It's very slowly. The driver rushed up onto the roof, put his big things over the hands here, gloves, and threw something that burned down there. I think the trolley bus then had to be pulled back into the depot by something. Maybe this one here. It's not in regular service, even though it says line 6. Ivano-Frankivsk is close by, also in the west, and we are not very far from the end now. Sorry it takes so long. I think we are going down number-wise. Downtown Ivano-Frankivsk railway station. It's a charter we did. This bus was scrapped soon afterwards or retired. New church being built. Industrial, the line very far out north to this industry. Quite a very nice fleet. They have a lot of second-hand vehicles from Salzburg, and this one is from Linz, and not all of them have been put into service because they also get new ones now. Skoda 15TR. Salzburg, Dnipro. KTG seems to live here. It has its own little power supply by the railway station. Now we're in Lviv, tram and trolley bus, and not many systems to go now. I'm going a little faster. They have this Gotha tram, which since this picture was taken has been completely restored. It used to be a works car, and now it looks like this. They have a lot of, well, not a lot, a couple of T3s left, usually in very bad state, except this one, which they completely restored. It's a museum tram now. And this Polish-built tram that runs, and you can hire. A lot of KT4s, old ones. one they are doing up in the depot, railway station. And they have these new Lviv Electron built 3-section, and here's a 5-section one. I think this one's out of service for a while, but they're getting more. This is a replica near the downtown square. It's a tourist information. It's not a real tram. It's made to look like one. Here's another Gotha works car. This one seems to have a problem in the middle here. Snow plow. Some work. I only put one of this like this in the show. You see them all over the place in Ukraine. Work. Avarinia, repair crew. Lviv type trolley bus built there. It's Electron, also built in Lviv, more modern. Quite steep downtown. All the old ones, I think, are gone now. And then we have Lutsk to the north, which is a trolley bus system, which has one Skoda 90R in the depot here, and some more modern ones. Railway station. This is a rather short one. I think it's the label. This is, of course, not the official label. It's a kind of graffiti advertising. I think it says Suzuki on the front, if I'm not mistaken, but it's built somewhere local under license. This is from Poland, from Lublin. So is this one. And this one is from Gdansk, and used to be a diesel bus, which they electrified in Gdansk, and it's now come here. And Rivne, also close to Lutsk, until very recently, the last system with a lot of 90Rs, now very much reduced. It is now the last system that still has a few 90Rs in service. This one is a charter we did, and here you can see this is the name of the rayon. So we are the city limits, the railway station. We rented this one. Now this one here is also from Poland. Nice gate. Livne, another charter we did, another private hire to this industrial line. And they have this one, which has been all over Russia and many other systems, and it's now ended up here. It's it's MZK. I'm not quite sure if MZK is not really also related to BKM, because they have similar looking buses now. And this one can run off wire and has batteries, and they have one line where this one runs. A lot of Soviet mosaics remain, but you have to look for them, and then of course try to get a nice shot with transport and the mosaic. They didn't really want us to take photos in the depot yard because they were ashamed of this. I don't know why. I mean, this is the end. This is what happens to old trolley buses. Eventually they get scrapped. We took some pictures anyway. So if you want to ride 90Rs in public service, you have to go to Rivne. They have a few left, and one can rent them, and they're very cheap. This one has been scrapped since, I think. Looks like they've been to IKEA here, these people, or similar shop where you buy stuff for your house. It's another little Rinok, quite a big one actually, but on the side streets you see these old babushkas, the grandmothers selling very, very few items to make some money. And unfortunately, when we were there, we spotted the city police harassing them, but they probably don't have a permit. But that's what you need to do. And you're a pensioner, you get very little pension, and you need to make some money to live. Classic view here at the one of the termini with all Skodas. No longer possible. In the depot, it's de-wired here. They have a little museum upstairs, a little exhibition room. So now we come to Zhytomyr. We're almost done. Zhytomyr, as you can see, is mostly trolleybus. All the green lines are trolleybuses. There's only one tram line left. There used to be, I think, 2 more, but they have long gone. And I don't know if the tram is safe because it's in rather bad state. We went here by Marshrutka from Kiev. It's about 2 hours. and the track work is rather bad, and the trams are rather worn out. No line number because it's not necessary. It's only one line. It's fairly frequent. A lot of people using it, but the quality wasn't very good. I mean, maybe they get some new cars. I think I remember reading about it somewhere, that they might get some new. Only one Tatra T3 left. There were two, only one runs now, and then we rented this one, and then we ran out up here, take a photo. Nice scenery here, nice young lady in the background. They also have a Gotha, I call it Disneyland type tram. It's a Gotha truck with a new wooden body on it, or partly wooden. We've rented this one as well. They've done it up. Some Gotha trailers, I think, survive as sheds. Trolley bus with tank is another tank view, old one. All these trolley buses are going. When we went there last October, a lot of new trolley buses had arrived. This was a previous visit, and there was a kind of an exhibition where they showed this Bogdan trolley bus, which did not go to this operator. It went somewhere else, but we don't know where because it has no identifying marks on it. It was on display. You see here, it has the label on the front, the Belarusian, Ukrainian friendship, whatever, and they displayed a lot of garbage trucks and cranes and stuff, and this trolley bus and one bus. This is what you see now. All the old trolley buses are being replaced with this new type of MZK. I think it's MZK. No. And a KTG. So this is the talk. This was the talk, my visit. Quite long. Sorry it took so long. I can only say Dziękuję, which means thank you. I'm done.
Thank you.